Hello, everyone. It's Cate Stillman with Yoga Health Coaching, and I'm here with Mia Thayer to discover who she is and how she's branding herself. You started Yoga Health Coaching when? A year ago?
November 2020. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so in Body Thrive right now, we're using The Gap and the Gain, that book. And so one of the things that you learn in The Gap and the Gain is you set an ideal, but you measure yourself against where you were. So where were you a year ago and where are you now?
That's good, because I had quite a gap day yesterday, but it's
as we all have, right? So it happens. And that's the whole point in like the community is it's like, okay, right. But gain thinking's better. Okay. So where were you?
Well, a year ago, October, I had just returned from being gone from COVID, where I had no work. I had no basically income, basically. And then I came back and before I had left before COVID, I'm a NIA teacher, movement teacher. So I knew I did not want to go back into my old model, which was I just have a scatter of classes and people can come whenever. So I created the journey with my classes, which was 10 weeks of dance. People sign up and then it's a season and then I have a month break and then 10 weeks. So I've done that now. I'm ending the 4th season for that, which has been great. Once a week for everybody dancing. I have been through the sausage machine of YHC. And it's been a year of lots of grong. But I'm in my 3rd season of the habit course. And every season it's been a evolution of myself and the conversation we're having. So this last season, I felt like I wanted to experiment with doing it offline because all my members, basically all of them were Friday morning dancers with me. Mm-hmm. And so I asked them, how would you feel if we just stayed another hour and a half in the same room after dancing? And everybody preferred it. So, and I also I was happy with it because originally I was teaching my habit calls at night, which I know I will no longer do.
Yeah, good.
So we're about to end. We have 2 more sessions. And it's going well, but it's still not there. Or I'm still not there with myself. Yeah. Like there's a puzzle piece for me or a few that are still missing.
Yeah.
But it's been happening. It's been happening and it's a lot of change compared to a year ago.
What I'm hearing is like you were able to implement the business model like that. And that was the sausage machine part of it. If it's just like, oh, I actually have to do this in real time. Like I have to, yes. And then you did it. And so now you're in a place where you're like, who am I? And what is this brand that I'm developing around my coaching and around movement and dance? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Great. So let's start to map that out in terms of like, what are some of the things that are floating around in your mind or on the table with that?
I was just writing before our call and I was just thinking about everybody who has joined the course. And there's all been a sense of like there was no anchor in themselves. Like that more of an anchor. The word anchor came up. So it's basically, there was an emptiness, a scatteredness. There was a woman who was having a divorce and kind of reevaluating where she was. There's a woman who is very in the spiritual realm, but was very separated from kind of her body or like the world. And she wanted to spend time in body time. That's why she joined. There's a woman who had a very bad year in 2020, was depressed and felt she was overweight and she just wanted to come back to herself. So it's like, it's coming back to myself. It's coming back to myself.
Now, I'm curious about that because I hear this a lot.
Mhm.
And I'll just write some of these words down, but what I often find, it's like, was the person ever really there? Like, were they ever really grounded? Were they ever, or is it actually going to a new level of establishment in the self?
No, the person was
I mean, just
not.
in general,
Yeah,
in general.
no, not anchored. No, and
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So that it's not really a return. It's like next level anchoring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Because often we'll hear things, and what I find is the more clarity we have around this, the more we can point that kind of stuff out.
Yeah.
So it's like next level, and I like the word anchor in self. I mean, and I'm just going to write the svasta, because this svasta, because all these words are going to be really essential, I think, for you getting a sense of like of your brand and of yourself as as the product, etc. And it's cool that in Sanskrit we actually have a word, we have a term for that, and that term is actually the definition of health, because this will help too in your marketing.
Yeah.
Like if someone's not anchored in this self, like red flag, right? It's like, oh wait, you're an ideal client. Like that's a red flag that we should be working together, because I know how to escort you through the transition of getting to there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in training now in compassionate inquiry with Gabor Mate. And I mean, the biggest thing that attracted me to it was how he talks about there's authenticity and attachment. And these are our two basic needs.
Yeah.
And when we're growing up, a lot of us sacrifice authenticity to remain attached. And of course, this is everywhere in the world, but I'm in China here, and that's definitely what happens here as well. And so I'm just the authenticity piece of being able to be myself, express myself, and be held in a group. Like that's what all of them love about our group and about the classes I do. So I'm able to be myself in all kinds of ways and say whatever, and I'm held. And so
yeah. So there's a lot around that. In order to do this, we need a place that's really, this whole thing around that is safe and accepting, but simultaneously is growth oriented. Because I think a lot of people, and maybe not in China yet, but it'll happen there soon enough. Like you can create safe and accepting, but that's not the same thing as safe and accepting and oriented towards growth. And if we look at, over here, like this B is not the same place as A, and it's not just self-acceptance, but it's like, how do you show up with authenticity in a group setting? Right. And it's like, because in the group setting, you're attached, but you're attached to people who can grow. And that's really different than being attached to people who aren't allowing you to grow and who you are also not allowing to grow, because that feels unsafe.
Yeah. And I've been sharing the stuff that I'm learning in compassionate inquiry, the trauma stuff, just kind of in general concepts with them. And it's so useful. I mean, for everybody, it's like, it's what it pulls them in, and stories, it resonates.
Yeah. So, and I would look at the attached, and it's like attached to the right people, attached to these growth oriented people. And so in many ways, what your program does, it's like, here they are on, I like the bus image. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but like, here they are on Mia's bus, and Mia's bus is growth oriented. And so you learn how to form like really good attachments and be in your authentic self and explore what that is, because you don't know, right? Yeah. People don't know when they show up. They're like needing to try out new ways of being with other people.
Yeah. How are we with other people?
And then I would think like a lot of the types of things that you can do in a group like that. Like we use liberating structures a lot. There's a lot of different types of structures to use that are safe and are accepting and are growth oriented, right?
Yeah.
And so again, this goes into like the marketing side, but also on the, like the deliverables is like, you're going to learn these tools and then you can bring these tools home. You can bring these tools into friendships that you want to be growth oriented, that have that potential. And for some people, like you can bring this into your workplace, because certain people at work will be receptive to this, because we know that people who can do this are worth more to a company. You know?
Cate, I having it be offline has been great, just because we meet offline anyway. They come and dance anyway.
Yeah.
But I also have realized the greatness of online through it, because, you know, when people don't come, I haven't been recording our live sessions.
Yeah. So they miss
it. And so what's becoming aware, what I'm thinking for the next session, and people from other provinces have been interested or have gotten to know. So I'm thinking of doing an online program for people who are not in Chengdu. And then, you know, I guess people who miss the week live can just go into the online call. Right.
And so that's like, you can come live here or when you're online. I would look at it as the hybrid model. And I would rewatch this lesson in YHC, because where you were a year ago watching that lesson and where you are now is like, and this is true with the whole YHC curriculum. It's like, it is a sausage factory. Like you learn a lot in a year, right? And it's so much implementation. And because you're working the process while you're learning the process, you're learning it from that stage of growth where you're at. So it's like, even if we look at your A to B in here with YHC, oops, I've got it on the wrong setting, right? If you learned that lesson here, that hybrid model lesson here, and now you're at B and you're like, I'm going to learn that lesson here. You're going to be like, oh, I could do this and this and this. So what I would do with that is you have online, and then you have Chengdu. And then you also have dancing, and you have coaching. And so the way that I like to build things is like, I like to step back, you know, every now and then. And my question is always is like, what gets people to results?
Yeah.
Like, how do I structure this so that all this happens? Right. That people go from attachment issues where they're not authentic, where they're not empowered, where they don't know, you know, really who they are as a self. I mean, in China, it's like people learn a lot more group identity before individual identity, right? And that's so deeply ingrained. And like, that's what you're here to do, is like wake them up out of that, and yet also be able to experience a group identity that's being part of me as group, that's growth oriented, and start to resonate with where they're trying to get to, but they don't really know how to get there, because you can't get there on your own. It's the problem.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, that's
what just came to me, the images, and this has been present for me the last month, has been like an internal compass. And people are so far away here, and I know everywhere, but I'm just talking about here, it's my authentic self, but the compass inside me that I make decisions for myself, or what's my way of being a parent, or what's my way of, you know, choosing a job. And that's what people, I see because I dropped out of 2 universities. And that is like my highest qualifier for so many people, which is interesting. Like, that's what people come to talk to me about. They come to talk to me about when they want to quit something, and like they're 33 years old and their parents want them to get married, and, you know, and they want them to have a stable job. So it's about saying no.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we capture all that. So I want to keep that one for the hybrid model. And here it's like, if it's so good to have a list of the pain points as they're coming up, and then of the potentials on the other side of that. So, I mean, man, you know, I lived in Beijing for a little while.
Yeah, I know.
Right. And there's that, like, I was 21, 22, in like from a very liberal arts school, like really high powered academic, but very liberal student body. And it was wild because we were at the finance and trade school, like basically like the MBA school in Beijing that was dealing with international trade. And those were our friendships with the Chinese students there. And it was just like the cultural divide of that was just like,
yeah.
whoa.
And I mean, that was 20 something years ago. So it was worse then. It was
worse then. Yeah. But it's still, these things are so deep, right?
Totally,
like
totally.
These things are so deep.
Completely.
So it's like the pain point is like, there is a plan and I don't want to follow the plan.
Totally. That's it.
Right. And so then what's the potential is like, you get to make your own plan and test that out. And the thing that they're afraid of is that if I do that, then there's a new pain point. And the new pain point is I will be alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, no, actually, you'll be with us. And we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then there's a new pain point of how do I do this and not leave my family? Like, how do I be, and you can do this all day where you just keep, and this will help you get to the root of messaging, marketing, sales. It's like, you know exactly what they're thinking at each of these stages, and you're helping them understand that they have choices. They have choices that they don't really think they have. Yeah. Yeah. So how do I stay attached to my family? We can use attachment language. How do I stay attached to my family and, and essentially work my own plan?
Yeah. Be myself.
And the potential is like, we help you. Yeah. Right. Or guide or escort or whatever is like, we guide. And I like the word guide more than help. We guide you. Like we know how to do this. And there's things that you'll then notice of like, oh, this actually, this is a good question for Gabor Marte. It's like, hey, Gabor, like, how do they stay attached while they're growing? And there's going to be cases where they can and cases where they can't. And you're going to get some really clear of like, if these things are happening, that's a choice point. If these things are happening, you don't even need to make a choice because like it's all kind of good enough as it is and it's not triggering anything major. Okay, good. So we got that down. So now what we know, again, if we go back to we've got dance, and I think the dance part is so important to your brand because it's what actually breaks down the plan. Right. That's like when the cartoons where like the egg cracks or like those like Bugs Bunny thing where they get the it's like a sledgehammer on the crown of the head. It's usually something like that.
It's like a blender. It's just what I was. Your shape changes because you're like this, and then suddenly you're in different shapes, different speeds, different rhythms.
And you thrive in it. Like you're like meant to be a world-class NIA instructor. Like there's just no doubt on that. Right. So it's like, that's part of the method. We do not segregate that. We build it in. And then obviously the circadian rhythm, the body thrive habits. And then the next level self stuff. Right. And that goes with this. Okay. So now that we know that this is the result, right? That they're anchored in self, and I'll just grab this over here so that we don't forget when we're building exactly what results we're building for. Because then really the next question of it becomes, okay, if it's going to be a hybrid model, meaning that there's some things that should be in person and there's some things that should be online. And we know that from the beginning. Then how do we build it? Next? What I find in general is with this is that people need options. because life is becoming more and more asynchronistic, meaning that like people want to do it when they can and not feel like they're missing out when they can't. And that can be challenging because you're in Chengdu and because your base is in Chengdu. Like I would base most things in Chengdu, but you could, if there's like ends up being like a satellite somewhere where you're pulling people from or where you want to start pulling people from, you can do a localized thing there. And you could even do it so that it works for travel, and it could even be, and there's like a million variations, and I'll just throw stuff out, and what you'll be like is that's not quite right, it could be this, right? And that's great. It's just editing based on the idea. Is say there was like a monthly on a weekend, right? Like a monthly, like, and it's probably like it doesn't even have to be a whole day, but the way that I would do it, that it would be a day, is like, we're going to dance in the morning. And then we're going to have like a PM workshop. And I would do it so that they can bring a friend. So it works for recruitment.
Yeah.
Into the group. Because this is like the easiest, fastest way to recruit in the group. You might find 12's too many times.
Yeah.
6 is great. We do it every other month, or enrollment's low. We should do that because it always pulls in 3 or 4 new members.
Yeah.
And then what you're getting is you're getting all this bonding, and you're focusing people's time that they don't need to be in town every Friday. They can just, maybe it's just the first Saturday of every month or first Sunday of every month or something like that, right? Where it's like, this is the opportunity, it's a bonus. And then everything else can happen online.
Yeah.
And so then, and that might be weekly online coaching. And as part of this, what I would do for the local members in Chengdu is like free NIA classes, something like that, where like that's part of the package. And anytime any group members in town, they can use it. And they can also say, I'm in Beijing, but I have a friend in Chengdu, because everyone in Beijing has a friend in Chengdu, right? It's like, you can have 10 passes that you give to friends. And now you're creating a regenerative community where you're inviting people to spread word of mouth and have an in-person experience with you, because that's really the most important thing. And it's not like you're not going to teach. This would work if you're going to continue to teach NIA in Chengdu.
Yeah.
And you are going to do that. Okay.
Yeah. And
And then there's a million variations on this theme. It can be a 2-day workshop once a quarter. What I find though is like for something like this with you, if it's like you were meeting in person weekly, like switching to this makes it easier. And if they can't make it to that 1-day workshop, it's like, give your ticket to a friend. And put a price on it. Each one of these 1-day things is worth $250.
Yeah.
But you turn it into like this regenerative, experiential, like where they're bringing a friend, they can share your NIA. Tickets.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the best thing for me with my NIA classes. Everybody who signs up for the 10-week pass originally could bring 2 friends. Now they can bring 1 friend for free once during the 10 weeks. That's been that's been
the
so easy.
regen engine.
Yeah. That's been great. But I haven't done that for the habit course. And it's getting. Yeah.
So, and then in the workshop PM thing, like this is where I would use the liberating structures, the work you're doing with Gabor Mate. Like this is how you actually give them tools that they can bring home and test during the month. And what happens with this, and I mean, I can host a workshop and literally the group can lead it.
Yeah. No, I've done workshops like that. It's great. And it's so important. Yeah. No, this is good. I like the word anchor that came up, and seeing dance. Yeah. The thing that many people have said to me also that makes them come, it's they see how I love my job and how it suits me and how it's like, and they want, like, it's like they want to go.
That's a pain point over here, right? They don't like their work.
They don't like their work.
And chances are their work is reinforcing that there's a plan, and they don't even want the plan. I love how they might not only not like their work, they might not like their company.
Yeah. Their husband, lots of,
Lots of that, right? And so then like, what's the potential? And really the potential is like, you can design your life
yeah.
and do the best work in the world. And that's why it's a year long, because obviously they're not gonna break all this stuff open at once.
Yeah.
So you can design your life. And you'll find, Nia, that if you do this as a model, or Nia, that Nia, if you do this as a model, I'm sure that's happened before, is that like people will stick around with you for years because they're going to crack the egg. Some people are going to be in there for a year and their egg is not going to crack.
Yeah.
It's going to shake, right? And then after a year, they're just actually ready. Now they're ready. They're actually ready to take action. They're safe. And it took them a year just to experience, because they've never experienced safe with authentic. And now they have, and they're like, this feels good. Now I can leave my husband. Now I can leave my job. Now I can say no to my parents and the arranged marriage. Now, right? All that.
Yeah.
All right. I've got to jump, but what I'm going to leave you with in terms of like the action, what is your brand name now?
The rough translation into English is Rooted Vitality.
And what's not working for you with that? Is it too abstract?
Yeah, it's not working. Holy Dragon, that's the Chinese name. I'm feeling like I want to change it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would do is make it as obvious as possible, geared towards the end result.
Yes.
And just go through, there's a lesson in YHC somewhere in marketing on naming things. And it does this whole cool little workshop on like the masculine and feminine. And like, you just are going to need to mess around and mess around and mess around. And then it's going to be like, there it is.
Yeah, no, I've been thinking the name needs to change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you, Kate.
Peace out, Mia.
Yeah, no,
You've been an absolutely awesome first year member of Yoga Health Coaching. I'm excited about YHC Mastery with you. I know you're going to rock it, and it's just going to it's more fun.
No, and I love, it's a 2-year program. It's important. I'm at that 1-year mark now where now I feel like, okay, let's get started.
Yeah.
Space in myself of groundedness. I'm in after this year, now I feel like, okay, now I can create more.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah.
And thanks for sending Jillian our way too. I hope she comes with us.
Oh, yay. Yeah. Great. All right, Kate. Thank you.
Bye.